The export of the services, the location of the suppliers is in India. The location of the supply is in India. The location of the recipient as outside India as outside India. The place of the supply outside India. The amount received in the CFP or in the allowed by the RBI. The supplier and the recipient are not deemed distinct person. Hello guys, hello everyone. Now export of the goods are taken to the place outside India. No such condition, no such condition of the receipt of the CAP. Only the requirement is the goods taken out of India. Now the import of the goods section 2 clause 10 means bringing the goods into the India from the place outside India. Now the import of the services section 2 clause 11 means the supply of any services where the supplier of the service is located outside India. The recipient of the services is located in India and the place of the supply of the services in India. Now section and the supply of the territorial water, they supply in the territorial water, supply in the territorial water. The notwithstanding anything contained in this act, the weather where the location of the supply is the territorial water, where the location of the supply is in territorial water, or where the place of the supply is in territorial water, where the place of the supply is in territorial water. The location of the clause A and B, the place of the business clause shall be deemed to be in the coastal states or the union territory where the nearest point of the appropriate baseline is located. Now the section 10, the place of the supply of the goods other than the imported and the export goods. Now involve the movement of the goods, the movement by the supplier, recipient or any other person that is transferred to the place of the supply. The place of the supply is the location of the goods when the movement of the goods terminates for the delivery to the recipient. Now the bill to shipping model, the supplier, recipient address, shipping address, third person billing address, and the place of the supply would be the place of the supply, the principal place of business to the third person, or the third person on whose direction the goods are supplied to the recipient. Now does not involve the movement of the goods, the supplier, recipient, the place of the supply, location of the goods at the time of the delivery of the recipient to the recipient, and the supply of the goods to the unregistered person. Override section 10(1) AC. 10(1) AC does not override section 10(1) AB. 10(1) B, the supply through the AC or the address of the delivery recorded. The the address of the delivery is located in the voice, the supply registered, recipient unregistered. On the place of the supply, if the address of the recipient exists address recorded in the invoice, address recorded in the invoice. If the address of the recipient does not exist, the location of the supplier. Now the installation and assembly of the goods on the site, the supplier and the recipient, the place of the supply, the place of the such installation or the assembly of the goods. Now the goods are the supplier, the goods are supplied on the board or the convenience, including a vessel, on the aircraft, a train or a motor vehicle. The supplier and recipient, the place of the supply is equals to location at which the goods are taken on the board. Now where the place of the supply of the goods cannot be determined, the place of the supply be determined as per the prescribed section 10(2). Hello Parky. Hello Parky, how are you? Then place of the service is section 12. Section 12 on the place of the supply, where the location of the supplier and the location of the recipient of the services in India. Description of the services, place of the supply. Now the section 12 to general rule for all the services except covered in 12.3, except in 12.3 and 12.14, 12.3 and 12.14. If the address of the recipient exists on the record, the place of the supply is equals to location of the recipient. If the address on the recipient does not exist on the record, the place of the supply is equals to location of the supply to the registered person, supply to the registered person, B2B model. Then the place of the supply. Parky, how was your exam? Now the place of the supply of the online services supply to the unregistered recipient, circular number. Okay. Now all the online services provided, including the online gaming order and TCO must record the state of the unregistered recipient for the tax invoices irrespective of the value of the supply. This state, this state name acts as the place of the supply under the GST as per Schedule 12 to B1. Oh, कौन सा सब्जेक्ट था? As per Section 12. Now the supplier must have a system in the place to collect and record this information before making the supply. Missing the recipient's state on the invoice can lead to the penalties under Section 122(3)(e). Now the recipient's state must also be reported as the place of the supply in GSTR 11A written. Now the Section 12(5) training and the performance appraisal place of the supply, the location where the services is actually performed. Now the ordinary organization of the events including the ancillary services sponsorship. Now in the place of the supply, place where the event is actually held. Note if event is held outside in the place of supply is equals to location of the recipient, the location of the such unregistered person. Now rule 5 prescribed for the supply. कोई बात नहीं. Yes. Rule 5 prescribed for the supply of the services attributable to different state or the union territory of section 112(7). In case of the services are supplied to the person other than the registered person, the event is held in India in more than one state and union territory, then and the consolidated amount is charged in the absence of any contract or the agreement or the separately collecting shall be determined by the application of the generally acceptable accounting policy. The transportation of the goods, mail or courier, the place of the supply is equals to location at which the goods are handed over for the transportation. Note the transportation outside India place of supply is equals to Rule 112 in of passenger transport services shall the place where the passenger embarks on the convenience or continues his journey, the right to the passage for the future use where the point of the embarkment is not known. Place of supply is equals to Section 120. That's a great thing. Parky, go on. Now Section 12(13) इंश्योरेंस सर्विसेज. गाइस आज मेरी भी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है इतनी, पता नहीं क्यों सर्दी सी हो गई है, इसलिए मैं दिन में आज कुछ नहीं पढ़ी हूँ, तो मैं आगे पढ़ती हूँ. Section 12(13) insurance services. The place of the supply is equals to location of the recipient on record of the insurance company. Now Section 12(3) the services directly related to the immovable property including the agents, experts, lodging in hotels, in accommodation or the functions of the ancillary services. The place of the supply, the location at which the immovable property or boat or vessel is located. But if the immovable property is located outside India, then the place of the supply is equals to location of the recipient. Then Rule 4 the supply of the services attributable to the different state or the union territories under the Section 12(13) in case of the services basis of the apportion of the value of the services by way of the lodging accommodation by the hotel in guest. Now, the number of the nights stayed in such cases a single property located in two or more continuous states in the union territory. Area-wise immovable property in all the services in relation to the immovable property including any immovable property or organizing any marriage of the recipient, etc. Now lodging accommodation by the houseboat or any other vessel on the services ancillary to such services, the time spent by the boat or vessel in such state or union territory, Non-session restaurant catering personal grooming, fitness, beauty treatment, health and plastic surgery, place of the location where the services is actually section 1260 is the admission to the event or the amusement park considers services the place of the supply where the event is actually from the services or the board of convenience the location of the first schedule. From section 1211 the supply of the telecom services including data transfer broadcast cable or DTH fixed on the cable line, place of the supply place where the fixed line is installed, place postpaid mobile internet if the address of the location of the supply then the prepaid mobile internet details the same for the agent the address of the agent if recorded otherwise location of the supply the direct to the final subscriber is equals to place where the voucher is sold. Now in all other cases if the address of the R exists the location of the recipient if the address does not exist location of the recipient supplier and the provision prepaid electronic payment then the place of the supplier location of the recipient in the record of the supplier in the record of the supplier. Now the rule 6 is prescribed the supply of the services attributable to the reference state entity under the subsection 11 of the section 12 of the said act. Now in case of the services the list circuit is installed in more than state union territory and the consolidated amount is charged in the absence of the contract of the agreement for the separately collecting the liability of the in the proportion to the number of the points lying in the state and the union territories. Any additions being made to the contracted price when the transaction value is acceptable. Yes, the following inclusion shall be made to the transaction value 15 to now any taxes, duties, sales fees and the levied to any law other than the GST law is charged separately by the supplier. Any amount to the supplier is liable to pay in the relation to such supply but which has not been incurred by the recipient and also not included in the price actually paid or payable for the goods or the services. Now incidental expenses including the commission on the packing charged to the supplier charged by the supplier to the recipient and any amount charged for anything done by the supplier in respect of the supply until the delivery of the goods or the supply of the services. Now interest or the late fee or the penalty for the delayed payment of any consideration for any supply and the subsidies directly linked to the price excluding the subsidies provided and the central government and state government. Now section 52A section 15.2a section 15.2a determine whether the following taxes are there and their value shall be included in the value of the supply as per the section 15 of the as per section 15 of the CGST Act. For the levy of the GST, Mr. recovers rent for the premises of 15,000 and a house of tax and a house tax of 10,000 per month. The contract price of the supply of the goods is 14,000 in use of the GST is 18%. An Indian company is required to pay 1 lakh to the German company for the technical knowledge, for the technical know-how. It deducted 10,000 as an income tax at source and paid 19,000 to the German company. The value of the supply shall include any taxes, duties, cesses, fees and the charges leviable under any law other than the GST law is charged separately by the supplier. Section 15.2a Now, under any law other than the GST law, if charged separately by the supplier. Now, discussion and the conclusion. Thus, the treatment of the valuation of the various cases as shall be under. The value of the supply shall be 16,000, which is including the house tax. Then the contract value would be 14,000, including 18% GST. So the GST would be divided. Thus, the value of the supply would be this. And the author note, we can show the value of the supplying GST, that is 100 and okay. Now the value of the taxable supply on which the Indian company will pay GST under the reverse charge shall shall be rupees 1 lakh, which is including TDS under the Income Tax Act. Now XYZ Limited sells the plant and the machinery installed at its factory on as is at rupees 2 lakh. Order to remove the machinery from the factory, the buyer incurs the dismantling charges of 3,000, which are paid to the third party. Determine the value of the supply as per the GST. The legal provision. The value of the supply shall include any amount that the supplier is liable to pay in relation to such supply, but the which has not been incurred by the recipient, not included in the price actually paid or payable for the goods or the services. Section 15(2)(b). Discussion and conclusion. In the given case, Mr. XYZ Limited, whether XYZ Limited sells the plant and the machinery on as it varies basis, where the dismantling charges are directly incurred by the buyer without the supplier having any liability of the same. Thus, the dismantling charges shall not be included in the transaction value of 2 lakh of the XYZ Limited, and the value of the supply shall be rupees 2 lakhs in the case, and the dismantling charges of 3,000 shall be separately treated in the invoice of the third party and not in the invoice of the supplier. AKG Food Private Limited gets the order of the supply of the processed food from the customer. The customer wants the consignment tested for the gluten or specified chemicals residues. AKG Food Private Limited does the testing and charges of the testing fees and the same from the customer. AKG Food Private Limited argues that such testing fees should not form a part of the consideration for the sales. It is a separate activity. Is the argument correct in the light of the section 15? Now, no agreement of AKG Food Private Limited is not correct. Legal provision. The value of the supply includes the incidental expenses, including the commission and the packing charges of the supplier by the recipient. Any amount charged for the anything done by the supplier in respect of the supply until the delivery of the goods of the supply or the services. Section 15(2)(c). Now, discussion and conclusion. In the given case, since AKG Private Limited does the testing on the customer's request before the delivery of the goods, the charges therefore will be included in the value of the consignment. Now, the Furniture Wala is the chain of the retailer showrooms selling both the modern and the classic furniture. In order to build a strong customer association, the showroom provides the free delivery of the furniture at the premises of the customer.